Joe Biden's decided to pull out of the US presidential election. That's less than 4 months before voters there go to the polls.
The Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, has said he respects the decision and looks forward to working with him during the remainder of his presidency. Let's talk now to the Education Secretary, Bridget Phillipson. Morning to you, Bridget Phillipson. Just your reaction to that news that came out yesterday that is on the front page of all the newspapers this morning, Joe Biden's decision to pull out of the US election race.
Good morning. What matters to us is that whoever the American people elect later on this year, that the strong relationship between our two nations continues and endures, that special relationship that is about how we work together, and that transcends any party interest, and it's about more than individuals. But I do know that President Biden has been a dedicated public servant and wants to make sure he puts the interests of the American people first, and that's what his decision has been about.
How closely will this government be watching the progress of this presidential race over the next few months?
Well, of course, we'll be following what develops in the US, but the relationship between our country and the American people is what matters most, and we will work with whoever the American people elect later on this year, because that special relationship is so crucial to us. It's endured over many, many years, and we're confident it will continue into the future.
And if that president were Kamala Harris?
Regardless of whoever the American people decide, we will work with that president, because the relationship between our two countries is so important.
We know that today the Prime Minister is due to launch a new body, Skills England, to improve the skills system in this country. What difference is it going to make? What changes might we see?
Absolutely. We haven't taken skills seriously enough as a country for a very long time, and this Labour government is determined to turn things around. So what Skills England will do is bring together across government the work that we need to see in order to address the big skills gaps that we see in our economy, but also right throughout people's lives, to give them the chance to get on at work, to take on new skills and benefit from the new opportunities that will emerge. Now, that is all about how we can drive well-paid, highly skilled jobs in every corner of our country, growing our economy. And we'll want to work together with our mayors, with businesses, unions and training providers in order to deliver that brighter future. I think we've got some really big opportunities in the years to come, but we've got to deal with this very complicated and fragmented system that we currently face.
You talk about in years to come and the system being complicated. How long will this take to set up?
Well, the measures that we're setting out today will allow for Skills England to be set up in shadow form very rapidly. We're also today announcing an interim chair so that we can get on that work, with that work, right away, because we know that it is urgent and pressing. We've seen a doubling of skills shortages since 2017. We know that too few of our young people have the chance to take on an apprenticeship and complete an apprenticeship, and we want to turn that around. But also, if we are to grow our economy, if we're to get the homes built that we've committed to, then we have to make sure we've got more people being trained in construction skills, where again in recent years we've seen thousands of vacancies open up. That's not good enough. It's holding back our country, it's holding back our people, and the measures we're setting out today will begin that process very quickly of starting to turn it around.
In numbers terms, what's the target then?
Well, we need to have that full audit about the skills shortages that we're seeing at the moment. We've seen a doubling, as I say, but I want an up-to-date assessment from Skills England. Alongside that, what we will need to make sure is we're training people for the jobs and opportunities of the future. I think all of your viewers would appreciate that in the years to come, the jobs that are there will be very different to the jobs that many people will be working in right now. That's a great opportunity for our country, I think, to be really at the forefront of those new jobs and technologies. But we need to make sure that we're training more people in order to deliver on it. So a full assessment of where we are, and then how we as a nation can really benefit from those opportunities and create more wealth in every corner of our country.
I know that one of the things you're planning to do is to reform how apprenticeships are funded. Who will benefit from the changes in how you fund that, where the levy comes from?
We will be setting out further measures, working with Skills England to reform that failed apprenticeship levy, turning it into a growth in skills levy. We'll protect apprenticeships, we'll make sure that our young people have the opportunity to start apprenticeships, but alongside that, we want to ensure that right throughout people's working lives, they have the chance to upskill and to retrain. I've seen some fantastic examples across the country where businesses are already doing that, but there is a lot more that we could do. The chance for people as technologies develop, as jobs change, to take on those new skills and ultimately to earn more. And we want people to be better off, and we need to respond to the gaps that we see. So I think this is a big and exciting opportunity for our country. It's a chance to get things right around skills. And we really think that if we do all of this, working together and working right across our country in our regions, then there'll be a brighter future for our people.
This is very much focused on 18 to 21-year-olds. I know you've just mentioned people retraining. What might be the upper age limit for somebody who wants to be an apprentice?
Well, there is no upper age limit. What we've seen is an expansion in recent years in apprenticeships. I am concerned, however, about the drop-off that we've seen in apprenticeship starts amongst 16 to 19-year-olds, and I want to put that right. But what I've seen across our country when I've been out and about during the election campaign in particular is adults who want the chance to gain new skills. So we're seeing big shifts in the world of work with the use of technology around, for example, robotics. I saw a fantastic example just the other day of how our young people are being trained in those new technologies, apprentices having the chance to engage in that. But actually when they go back to their workplace, the people that they're working with day in, day out, they don't have the same opportunities to take on training around those new technologies. And I want to make sure that we open up training and opportunities for adults as well as for our young people.
We've heard, haven't we, that the Chancellor hinting at a pay rise for public sector workers, and we spoke to the General Secretary of the Association for School and College Leavers on this programme just a little bit earlier, who said that a 5.5% pay rise is essential, but he wanted to know, how will that be funded? Where will that money come from?
Yeah, I completely recognise the frustration of school leaders at the moment. Just to be clear, this was presented to me, this peer review body recommendation was presented to me on my very first day in the job as Education Secretary. The last Conservative government had failed to publish it and it disappeared off the scene. I mean, completely irresponsible. But we are determined to get this right, and as the Chancellor set out yesterday, across government we're going to work at pace to make sure that we can respond, and there will be a statement made by the end of the month to deal with all of this. You know, our teachers, our education staff do a brilliant job. They are fantastic, and we want to make sure that they are supported, but we have to work through this process carefully. And, you know, as your viewers will know, the economy is not in great shape at the moment, and we've got to make sure that our sums add up.
And making those sums add up is exactly what he was talking about. Could you offer him a reassurance that any extra money that is required would not have to come from their current budget?
You'll appreciate I can't speculate on what is or isn't in the peer review body recommendation. That will be published alongside the wider response that we'll be taking across the public sector by the Chancellor before the end of the month. The reassurance I can give to school leaders and to teachers and education staff is we take this incredibly seriously. We recognise how tough it's been in recent years, and what I've done as Education Secretary from day one in the job is to start the process of resetting that relationship between government and the profession. We'll have more to say very soon. I know it's frustrating. I know people want to hear more, but we've got to get the process right. And I think that's what school leaders would want ultimately, to get to a good place on all of this, to resolve it and to have the clarity that they need.
And it's also not about what is in the current budget. It is about the extra money that might be required.
Yeah, and what happened was the Conservatives received a range of peer review body recommendations, didn't publish them, called the election and ran away from the tough decisions. We are not prepared to duck the tough decisions, but we have to go through a process now of making sure that we can respond across government, getting a fair settlement, because we know, as Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor, set out yesterday, that consequences flow from not getting this right, and we certainly do not want to end up in the situation that we saw under the last Conservative government of industrial action.
Reports over the weekend suggest that there are perhaps several universities facing a serious financial crisis at the moment, and Labour has said in its manifesto that it wants to make universities financially stable. How will you step in if any university is struggling?
Well, first of all, universities are independent institutions and have responsibilities in terms of how they manage their money. But I do recognise the scale of what many universities are facing at the moment. Again, the legacy that we saw of 14 years of the Conservatives. I want to make sure that our universities have got a bright future, and the difference that you will see between this government and the last is that we recognise that universities are engines of growth, central to jobs and opportunities in every town and city right across our country, and we want to get this right. Now, there are limits to what I can say ahead of time, but where it comes to the regulation of the sector, We will be announcing plans in terms of the leadership. The chair of the Office for Students recently departed, and I'll be saying more to Parliament as soon as I can about next steps in terms of ensuring we've got strong regulatory oversight of the sector to make sure that universities are fully engaged in that process.
But would you step in if there was a university in crisis, in danger of going out of business?
Well, first and foremost, universities need to manage their own budgets. They are independent of government, for all they are regulated and overseen by government. And it's about getting that balance right and not wanting to make sure that taxpayers, it's about good value overall, both for the student, for the institution and for taxpayers overall. But I don't recognise some of the wider claims that were made over the weekend about the state of the sector. I do recognise that there are bigger challenges that are there. And part of what I've also said in order to make sure that we are stabilising the sector is that we do recognise the important role of international students in terms of the contribution they make to local economies and also to the financial sustainability of our institutions. That is a difference in terms of approach where it comes to the last government, and we will not be treating our universities as a political battleground as under the last Conservative government. We'll make sure that they are treated as a public good because we know the vital role that they play in our regional and national economy.
Education Secretary Bridget Phillipson, thank you.